Hey, this is Dan Eisner here with Key Insight Coaching, and since the world is about to apparently end in a few hours, I thought I'd give you my little 2 cents about what I think this really means. I'm calling it the simple truth about the end of the world. What is all the fuss about? I think it's clear to say that none of us thinks the world is really about to end, yet I think it's clear that we all sort of can sense something. Something's happening, things are changing, the energy seems to be moving faster, and I think we can all sense that something is going on some level. Well, what is really happening right now is that the days of ego domination are coming to an end. We become so addicted to moving faster, getting more, and protecting ourselves and our self-images that we've really forgotten what really matters. And I think that's what's going on right now, and that's what we can sense on some level. Now, what a lot of us don't realize, and one of the most important things that I learned several years ago, is that we actually have two centers of being. So we have an ego center, and then we have our spiritual center, or consciousness center. Our ego center is our human center. Our consciousness center is our spiritual center. And they each have very distinct characteristics that are quite opposite from one another. The human center is internal noise, spiritual center, internal silence. On the human side, we've got stress. On the spiritual side, we've got peace. On the human side, complexity. On the other side, simplicity. And we've got disconnected, us versus them, on the ego side. And then on the other side, we've got connected and knowing that we're all in this together, we're all one. And then we have never satisfied, always needs more on the human or ego side. And then contentness, I am and I have enough on the opposite side. Now, I think it's not really a surprise to anyone, or not really, we all know this on some level, that we are so addicted to getting more, that we've really getting more, having more, being more, that we've really forgotten what really matters, and we've forgotten the importance of just being. And we've deluded ourselves into believing that if I just get enough more money, if I just get the right job, if I just have the right partner, if I just have the right house, whatever it is, then I can just be. Well, it's sort of a backwards way of doing things. One of my favorite Dalai Lama quotes is this. When he was asked what surprises him, he said, "Man, because he sacrifices his health in order to make money, then he sacrifices money to recuperate his health, and then he is so anxious about the future that he does not enjoy the present, the result being that he does not live in the present or the future. He lives as if he is never going to die, and then dies having never really lived." I think we can all kind of sense this on some level. And the reality is that the vast majority of human beings right now are stuck in this mentality, and so many of us are clinging to these outdated mentalities. And it's clearly not working. And that's why we're seeing catastrophes like Enron and these sort of corporations that are going under from diluting their investors and all these kinds of things, because people are clinging to those old ways and it's just not working anymore. However, some people are starting to wake up, to really recognize what's going on. That's why things like meditation, mindfulness, yoga, energy medicine, movements like Occupy Wall Street, and coaching and consulting and these sorts of things are becoming so wildly popular, because on some level many people are recognizing that the way we've been doing things simply isn't working, and we need to look, we need to find a new perspective. I've always loved Einstein's quote, which is, we cannot solve our problem with the same level of thinking that we used when we created them. So as long as we're in ego-based consciousness and we think that we're just human beings and we forget the other side, we can never get out of the jams that we've created. So I think the end of the world is really about a transition. It's about a transition from thinking of ourselves as just human beings, which are really thinking, doing machines who believe we're separate from everyone else, to living what I like to call our spiritual humanity, knowing that we are awareness, consciousness, spirit, whatever you want to call it, in human bodies, intimately connected to everything else and equally responsible for the well-being of our world. Now, you may be a little bit shocked by this sort of statement, and to tell you the truth, it wasn't that long ago that I was either. One of my favorite little quotes, though, that I learned fairly recently, and I'm not going to try to pronounce this guy's name, is that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Again, this is something that not that long ago really would have had my eyes rolling. But one of my favorite teachers in this respect is Deepak Chopra. And one of the things that I've heard him say is that consciousness, awareness, spirit, these are all really pointing to the same thing, can't be found in the brain because that's not where it exists. Okay, there's something much greater in us that has nothing to do with our little physical bodies. It's that part of us, and one of my favorite questions to ask people is, did you ever notice that there's a part of you that feels exactly the same as you always have, regardless of your age? And everyone I've ever asked that question knows exactly what I mean. Well, that's the timeless part of us that is our pure consciousness, our spirit. That's really who we are. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should just all become spiritual gurus and forget about, living our humanity. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. But what I am suggesting is that it is time to find balance. It's time to bring more consciousness into the actions that we take on this planet. That's the only way we'll ever save ourselves and our planet. It's really the only way. It's time that we find balance, and that's really what this quote-unquote end of the world is really about. It's really, I love Gandhi's quote, be the change you want to see in the world. We see these tragedies happen like this most recent incident in Connecticut, and what are most people doing? Pointing the fingers. It should be the gun laws. It should be this. They should be doing that. They should be doing this. Well, I'm not saying we shouldn't address those things, but the fact of the matter is, it's consciousness that creates that. It's only consciousness that can prevent these sorts of incidents from happening. I would be willing to bet that there were so many people in and around that scene before it happened who knew that kid, who had some sense that something might happen. They might have, they're probably saying right now, oh, I knew it, but yet they didn't do anything. Well, and again, I'm not blaming them for this, but I'm saying this is what happens in our society, is that we don't trust. We're just not aware enough to trust our intuition and to take action around these things to prevent horrible tragedies like this. And that's the only way we're ever really going to see these things from stop happening, is when the individual, that means all of us, we're all equally responsible for this, start raising our consciousness, becoming more peaceful, becoming more loving, becoming more of what, again, we want to see in the world. So that's my take on what the end of the world is really about. Again, it's Dan Eisner from Key Insight Coaching. If you have any questions or any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at dan@keyinsightcoaching.com. I also have a website, keyinsightcoaching.com, which is actually in construction right now. It's being revamped, but it should be up shortly. Thanks so much for tuning in.